What's up, world? Isaiah here from Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Jasper, and Theo. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify with new episodes every Friday. We also want to hear from you between episodes, so follow our Instagram at Making It Make Sense IJT or email us at makingitmakesense@gmail.com. Now listen up and let's make all the sense.
Hi, everyone. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast so that everyone can hear it, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. It is everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Jasper, and Theo. And today we're going to be talking about male body image.
Woo, woo.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna kind of segue over to you guys, and then I'll jump in after, because I definitely have some things to say, and I'm sure you guys do too.
Well, I'm gonna segue over to Theo.
It's a double segue. Okay.
And I'm going to seg over to Baby Black Jesus. Baby Black Jesus?
Take the wheel. Okay.
Yeah. He'll be returning in a couple of years.
I cannot.
So male body image, what does that mean? What does that look like? Because, we normally talk about body image in terms of women.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like for women? I think the definition of male body image can be, just how men are perceived in media and culture, which can be your own personal culture, the greater culture, and things of that nature. And I thought that we should talk about this topic as 3 queer men. And I think all 3 of us have 3 different body types, and how the image of being what your ideal male for your body type was. I didn't know that I dealt with male body images or issues or male positivity until I think maybe when I was 27 years old. I didn't discover that I, for a very long time, had an eating disorder.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And for a very long, I've always been not slim, I've been like a muscular slim guy.
Mm-hmm.
And also because of my eating habits or whatever, I didn't notice that I had an eating disorder and that I was purging.
Oh, man.
I, for a very long time, used to take these detox teas. I'm sure you guys have heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Since the age of 16 to the age of 27, 28. I will take these purging teas and I would purge. After every meal, every day, I will take these teas. And that's because I didn't have a good self-image of myself. I wasn't, the image that you see here is like, that I was exposed to is like the very muscular, fit kind of guy. And in my distorted mind, I didn't think that I fit that image. So I was purging myself for a very long time, for the majority of my 20s, a large percentage of my teen years. And I would mention this to people, and people would just be, oh, there goes Theo, because I'm a black man.
Mm-hmm.
And people would just dismiss me and dismiss my experience. Well, there goes Theo having his tea again.
Mm-hmm.
But if my name was Jane or Tanya and I was a female, people would have taken me a bit more serious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense.
I mean, it makes a
So,
lot of sense.
and I go and I see a therapist every once a week,
Mm-hmm.
and through therapy and through conversation, when I was being honest about it, because I was trying to achieve like the perfect body, but I don't what was the perfect body.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been quote unquote fat or overweight or obese. I've always had a fit body, a perfect body for me.
Mm-hmm.
And through conversations with my therapist said, Theo, you had an eating disorder. And I was like, who the fuck you talking to? I ain't got no fucking eating disorder. Eating disorder is for girls. I ain't no girl.
Right.
And then my therapist had to slap me in my face and get me together and tell me, Theo, no, you had an eating disorder. And I think that maybe you should have a conversation with your doctor, your nutritionist, and you should stop taking those teas.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I was 27, 28. I had the conversation with my therapist, with my doctor. We came to the conclusion, yes, you have an eating disorder. And I discovered that after I stopped purging, that I had a bunch of intestinal issues
I can
because of those
imagine.
decades of purging.
Mm-hmm.
And I was putting myself through all this physical, basically pain and torture of my body, that as recent as I think this year, I finally got my digestive system, my intestines back in order,
Mm-hmm.
because I, for a very long time, was allowed to purge. I was not allowed the space and the opportunity to express to the world, to my family, to anyone, that I didn't view my image as a boy or a man to be the perfect body. I wanted to be something else, and I didn't see the perfect body.
Mm-hmm.
I would see in the mirror, I would see something totally different.
Oh,
And I would not see me. And then when I look at those pictures now, I was like, motherfucker, what the fuck were you complaining about? And I now, as a 36-year-old man, as a 36-year-old parent, I'm very mindful, and and to be honest, I still do have an issue with food today.
Mm-hmm.
You guys might hear me chewing and might hear me eating, but I eat one meal a day. Because it's very, I don't know, it's still, it's still in my head. I'm eating, but I eat one meal a day. It's a delicious meal. Like you guys just heard me eat. That was my one meal for the day. And so, male body image is I think, and I think it's going to be a issue that I'm going to have for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not something that's consuming me like it was before. It wasn't something that was hurting me like it was before. I'm better now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not purging. I haven't purged since I was 27, 28 years old. Oh, okay. Now you gentlemen, sorry to bring the mood down.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, you set the mood. You set the tone for the episode. So your stuff was
100%.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, the way my male body image is set up, starts from when I was very young. There was a relative that made a comment to my parents, saying, I think it was like one of those in passing, like silly, that's the way they meant it, but it set with me. And I hope hi mom, I hope you don't regret telling me, because please don't, because I should have known. But a relative, I think I was like 3 years old, and the relative said to my parents, are you guys feeding him? He looks malnourished.
Oh my God.
And
Black Jesus.
I was 3 years old, right? And obviously, mama bear. And I don't think the relationship with that relative was the same after that. But it set with me. I don't know why at the time, but it did. And once my mom told me, but my mom, her and I, she was sharing things with me very young, and I was comprehending them very young. So I think that's why she would share those things with me as well, and be honest and be transparent. And I love that relationship. I'm so grateful I had that with her. But so from that point, I just felt like, oh, like I'm too slim, and there were other relatives that would make comments like that in passing and stuff like that. And, you need to put some meat on those bones, or, and things like that. And I would just I didn't think I was like, well, what's wrong with my body? Like, and so throughout my adolescence, pretty much for the most part, always felt like that even though I loved food, I could just eat and eat and eat. And I wouldn't put like this weight on that like people were saying that I should put on. And I was just like, well, this is weird. I'm supposed to gain weight. Like, why am I not gaining like this? It's nothing medical or anything like that. I just had like an incredibly high metabolism. And so I've developed a little bit of a complex about it, where I went like, okay, well, why am I not like buff looking like this guy or that guy, like, or whatever. That's interesting. And then once I got into high school and I kind of saw like everyone had different body shapes, like it kind of quelled it a little bit for me. Like for some reason I felt like, okay, well, I don't need to be like super buff, but all right, like I can be slender because these guys over here are slender and it's not a big deal. The major issue for me came because that paled really in comparison, but the major issue for me came when I came out and I got into my 20s, and I felt like, okay, well, I should look like these guys in this magazine, or I should look, I should be toned. I should look, I should have like you said, the perfect body. I should look, I need to be petite and tight in the right places, and and looking good and all this stuff. And I used to like internally shame myself because I was like, okay, well, I don't feel like I look like the other guys. Funny enough, when you brought that up, Theo, like looking back at pictures, I was cute as hell. But like, like you
what were we looking at?
What were we like? There's a picture I pulled up the other day, and I was just like, I looked real good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why did I think there was something so wrong with me?
Oh, wait, let me interrupt you real quick and give a definition. Your body image is how you think and feel about your body. It does not necessarily reflect what you see in the mirror or what people see. Poor body image can be linked to dieting, over exercising, eating disorders, and steroid abuse. And there's also body dissatisfaction, or a negative body image. This can also often result in overwhelming feelings of disappointment, shame, and guilt. It can also lead to unhealthy behaviors such as fad dieting, again, eating disorders, over exercising, steroid abuse, etc. This is very common in us males. Mm-hmm. And from the statistics, it says that 10 to 15% of males suffer from bulimia and anorexia. So go ahead, Isaiah.
Thank you, Theo, and thank you for those definitions, Theo. And they were brought to you by dictionary.com.
Yeah. Hashtag Merriam-Webster. So, no, but, and to kind of add on to what you were saying about, doing detox teas. So there was even a point like, in my mid to late 20s where I was, I was using, there were detox teas, but they were like, it was this venti chai. Yeah, very, very Starbucks, but like, it was like a chai ginger spice like mix thing, and I'd have like 3 a day, and I would still eat though. Like I wouldn't not eat. But another thing to know about me, I guess, and I don't know, I'm gonna be totally honest about this. I don't know if this relates anything to that, to having to do with body image so much as just in the mornings I have like a weird stomach about certain things like sometimes. But I don't eat breakfast during the week, actually. My spouse does, and everything. I just don't. Like I did like obviously as a kid and stuff like that. I just don't eat like early in the mornings. And I've never stopped to really think about if that has anything to do with my body image or the way I eat or my relationship with food, or if that's just something I do. I think that would require, actually, I'm going to run that by my therapist, but now come to think of it, but it's just not something I've ever thought about in that vein. I will say, and I will share, like, and I think my husband like notices this sometimes, but we were talking about earlier, like me knowing my weight like that. So about once or twice a week, okay, maybe a little more, maybe like 3 times a week, I step on our scale. The funny thing about it though is when I speak to friends, I always encourage them to like, okay, don't focus on the number that's on the scale. Focus on how you feel about how you look yourself. Don't get, fixated and dependent on the number. Like that's not what matters. But for me internally myself, I'll step on the scale and go, ooh, okay, like you're right. Like I've done that before. And earlier I was saying I plateaued, and I'm very happy about that. I think I'm at I personally feel like I'm at a very healthy weight. I mean, I do have to jump to get into some of my dreams, but like that's okay. Like they still button. So it's like it's a very weird experience sometimes. Just if you think about, or maybe not weird, but it's just really interesting. Like if you think about, the little things that might be triggers to you, like regarding your body image. Even now, I mean, I'll be totally honest, like, do I look awful without a shirt on? In my opinion, not awful, but like I have work to do. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell you exactly what my goal is. My goal is I want to look amazing in a crop top.
And you know what, Isaiah?
I'll still wear one, but like I just want to look a certain way, I guess.
Watch when we're 40, we're going to look back at ourselves now and be like, what the fuck were we looking at?
And think the same thing we think in our 30s about our 20s. Exactly. And so I guess you're right. It's very subjective sometimes based on experience and age and looking back. It's retrospective or looking in retrospect really is a big deal as well, because you don't realize that, hey, like I actually did kind of look the way I thought that I wanted to look at the time. But I mean, that's kind of, I mean, where I am now. I mean, like you guys will hear, like I go to the gym, like, once a week and stuff, sometimes twice. And, and I do my best. But I mean, do I want more from my body? Sure. Do I overdo it sometimes at the gym? Maybe not quite. I think I run straight through for a period of time that maybe I could chill out on. But like, it's a stress reliever, so that's great. But I think there's still like improvements that I can make for me, and it's a constant journey. Like, I feel like I'll get there.
Yes, we would. And we are two men in our 30s, mid 30s.
Yeah.
And Jasper is soon to be in his 30s.
I'm a baby.
Yes.
I'm the baby. I'm 29, y'all. I'm the baby in this group.
You're the baby, but you're not a baby.
So
Stop.
I'm the baby.
What is your
I'm
journey?
the baby.
What is your journey through this body image
What's your journey?
debacle?
Well, my journey is on the different spectrum, because my journey was with weight, because it's, as a child, I wasn't overweight as a child. I was the average size child, but I hit my weight gain when I was 11, 12, and I noticed like the weight gain, the dramatic weight gain that I had, and the journey from that 11-year-old till until my middle school years and high school years was really rough because my weight struggles have been crazy because I lose weight and gain it, so we go up and down. I'm like trying to figure out, why, I'm having this battle with weight, and I was always teased and always put down. And I hate the word fat. The word fat is like that's a trigger word for me because it's been said to me so many times in my entire life. But now I'm like at a point where I'm over it, but I don't like the word fat because to me it's like just because I feel like it's just because someone's a little bit bigger. I look at it as thick because it's not. I look at it as thickness. Some people are thicker than others. Some people could use extra meat on their bones. Just saying. And so I had to learn to love myself because at some point, when I was like 13, 14, I actually wanted to commit suicide because I had felt so like frustrated with the ridicule, and I was being teased even by relatives. Like it was the constant just the teasing on my weight, and so I got to the point at that point like, well, if people are so disgusted with how I look, and it's always that's the first thing you go to is to call me fat, then I'll just leave everybody alone and then I just won't be here anymore. And so I had to learn how to love myself. And it took me a while to get there. And now I love who I am. And yes, I want to be at a healthy, moderate weight. And I will get there, but I'm no longer under the pressures of this society to force me to have to fit this ideal, what they consider an ideal weight size. Because in my mind, I was like, well, the ideal weight for me was like 120, 125, 30 pounds. I'm like, but
What?
yes, I'm like, but me
Wait, for
physically,
your height? Like that's
in
the
my
weight?
mind, in
Oh,
my
in
mind,
your mind. Oh,
in my mind, my ideal weight for me as a child was
mhm.
okay, 125, 130, like in my mind. But I'm like,
Mhm.
physically, that wouldn't look right on me to be that small. So I
Mhm.
had to realize, like, you just in your mind, you let society and people tell you that you need to be this small, you need to look this way. So you let it kind of affect your thought process on how you look. And I had to realize, that I'm beautiful. I'm handsome. I'm a good looking individual. And yes, I can you can be thick and still be nice and still look good and still be and feel amazing. And so I had to gain self confidence because it was definitely broken and I was definitely insecure about my weight. And I'm not saying that you can't be um healthy and be healthy because it's important to be healthy and get a
Mhm.
certain size, but I also think that you can be healthy and still be voluptuous. You still
Mhm.
can be curvy and still have thickness to you, but still be healthy and be in a healthy weight. So I had to
Mhm.
learn to love myself, and I had to realize, you know what, you're gonna get to the weight that makes you happy. Don't let the pressures of society, the pressure of people tell you what you need to look like or what you should do. Do it the way you know how to do it. You do it the way you learn how to do it, and just find your comfort in what you want to be. So, yeah, my weight struggles. But it went plateaued. I got to plateau up and down. Like it's been a turbulent ride, but now at my age, I'm still young, 29. I've learned some things, and I've learned how to, and I'm working on that, and I'm getting better. So it's a process. Just listen to you guys. I was like, wow, like they have a whole their whole situation is on a different spectrum than mine. Like
Mhm.
mine's more with gaining weight, and being a bigger person and consider a bigger person, and you guys are completely different. So it was, listening to you guys like, wow, like I'm all by myself on this side of the spectrum on this topic as well. It's like, yeah, my show was completely different.
But I
yeah.
think at the same time, like the unifying idea, and I hope you don't feel alone in that, like necessarily, because the unifying idea is that male body image and having a positive overview, having a positivity about your body image is what's important. You know what I mean? And so to me, even though they're on a different spectrum, it's still speaking from a place of struggle that we've
Mm-hmm.
all gone through, in different ways, you know what I mean? And things that are triggers for all of us. And so I think that's the unifying idea. And it really brings together the idea that, us as men, like, I think people think people have this like idea that because you're a man, or because you're a male, that you don't you are unmoved, you know, like you're just stone cold and you're unmoved by anything that's said to you, that you don't actually have a deep-seated imprint emotionally of something that's happened to you, or any level of trauma, you know what I mean, that you've experienced. And I think
You're
that's
supposed to be
kind of
hard, a lot harder than a rock.
absolutely, we're not supposed to
Oh
feel
yeah.
anything and be sad or be upset or show emotion, you know. And to me, that's like a completely archaic view of humanity.
Neanderthals.
Exactly, like that's a Neanderthal view of the human experience in general, you know what I mean? Like that's all. A lot of this is, you know, society and these social ideas that men do not experience these things. You know, the statistics that Theo gave earlier, you know, where he talked about like instances of bulimia and anorexia in men, you know, or occurrences of, rather. That's, I mean, you know, it might not be the same. It might not be the same percentage as, you know, it occurs in women, but it's something, and it's enough to be concerned, because I don't feel like enough people speak about or talk about, you know, male body image and the damage that not only inflicts on us personally, but on our society overall.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah, like I, I've never didn't know men, even men suffer from bulimia or
Mm-hmm.
anorexia. Like there's something new. I can learn something new tonight because I didn't think men suffer from that. I always it's always put and always categorized as an illness that affects women, especially in mainly white women. So you never think men or anyone of color would suffer from that type of disease. So I'm shocked to learn, these experiences of going through bulimia and stuff like that. That's something
And
new too.
and you brought up like a really good point too, Jasper, in what you just said about, you know, about like just us not even like certain pieces of things, us not even realizing or knowing. And I think a lot of that has to do, me personally, and you guys, you know, might have a different opinion about it, but I personally think it's because some of these things are underreported in men because they're not perceived as an eating disorder, or it's not perceived that way when it's a male. I think the same thing goes for, you know, people of color. I think there's underreporting in that, you know, so then we're kind of led to believe that these occurrences are more often in females, and that most of those females are Caucasian, when in actuality, if more accurate reporting and a wider set of it was done, you might find that there's way more occurrences in people of color, both male and female, than we think, or than we even
And
realize.
also, and to that's why I believe that is true, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why I was never helped. That's why I was never
Mm-hmm.
given. I'm not saying this one to get poor. Poor Theo. Wah, wah, wah.
No, but that's
Poor
true.
man. I'm just, these are just the facts, and then, this is just my experience.
Absolutely.
Because when I was 16, 17 years old, I mentioned this,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone just dismissed it. And that this is not unique to me. This is very common for a lot of males, because there are a lot of labels and expectations that are placed on males,
Mm-hmm.
and the way you're supposed to act, the way you're supposed to think, some things that don't impact you, like, oh, you're depressed, you're a man, get over it. Depression is for faggots, depression is for ladies, so depression is for something that's considered weak and second class. Like, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, being sad, getting depressed, impacts everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the message that people need to deliver, instead of hammering into people's heads saying, oh, that's a girl thing, that's a boy thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's an all of us thing. It's a people, everyone who's living a life and is on this road experiences everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. We experience everything. That's true. So it needs to be more. People need to, I just think of conversations and need to be had, and people need to, kids and adults need to be able to have these conversations with. and be open and be
Mm-hmm.
received and get help and not be ignored, because it's definitely a problem when it's turned away and ignored. It becomes a long term of illness or a long term effect mentally, physically on anyone.
And again,
Absolutely.
this is trauma that I don't know if society or whoever, this is trauma that I view that I inflicted to myself
Mm-hmm.
because, I slipped through the cracks. And even at 36 years old, I sometimes, just when you think that you've worked through something, I notice that my relationship with food is really weird. Like when we're going to family events, I get a little bit of anxiety because I know there's going to be a lot of food there.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation is going to be that you have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Going out to restaurants is it like triggers my anxiety because I know that we're going to have to go and eat. So food to me now became not a time to be festive. And I remember telling a therapist that I feel like everything we do and we celebrate, there's always food present. And why is food always part of the equation?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm triggered sometimes in a negative way, and I have to be cognizant and be aware of my triggers because I have to tell like Theo Negro, sit down, relax. It's food. It's not about the food. It's about the time you're spending. It's about the quality time with your family, with your friends, or whatever. And then you're just so happen to have. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes
That makes
sense,
sense.
it makes sense, and you can watch everybody else eat, and you don't have to and you can just watch. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to eat. Those for you, so it's a different situation. So with food for you, it's a trigger in a way. So you like with your relationship with food, so you feel like food can be overwhelming to have food, because I know when you go to a family events, it's like an overwhelming quantity of food. So
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine you going into a party or space and you see all this food and you really don't have your relationship with food is kind of different. So
Mm-hmm.
and you seeing all this food on a platter of food and you kind of try to avoid it. But I mean, do you when you go to your family functions, do you sit and watch everyone? Do you sit and not eat anything, or do you get something? And
Oh,
how?
look, can you imagine? No, 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 no. I don't want to be awkward. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I well, you know what it was
Okay.
before. I was able to eat fine, but you know what I had? I had my detox tea.
Oh,
And the anxiety came up more now that I no longer have that outlet. So I would eat up a storm, but I knew that at the end of the day, I will have me 2 tea bags of this detox tea, and I will wake up in the morning, and you know what happens when you detox, and
oh yeah.
it'll be like I never ate nothing. And that's exactly what was happening. My body was constantly not eating everything,
Mm-hmm.
was not getting the nutrients it needed. I'm surprised that I still have all my pearly whites, and that my skin and my bones are fine
Mm-hmm.
because that's how excessive I was about it. And that's what's bringing the anxiety that I no longer have to have the detox tea to lean on, and that I have to also be mindful about what I eat. I have to, you know, all these things that, makes no sense to some people, but then that's what makes it a quote unquote disorder.
It makes, because it's like that was a security blanket. So then
Oh
now
yeah.
it provides, or provide a security blanket. But now it's like that extra, like, oh, okay, wait a minute. So now I have to occupy a part of my brain or headspace has to be occupied by, okay, what am I eating? What am I taking into my body? Like on a more heightened level than
Yep.
with it. Right. I hear that.
But yeah, and so you had so like Isaiah was saying, there was your comfort and security blanket. So now you have to go in there kind of naked and kind
Mm-hmm.
of face it head on without the security blanket of that tea.
Right.
So it's challenge. You're being challenged every day
Mm-hmm.
with this journey. But you're doing well. I mean, because if you was eating early, you was eating that food, you was tearing it up, so you can eat. We know
Yeah.
that.
I was a hungry motherfucker. That's what it was. Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's going to be a challenge for the rest of my life. And I think for the different stages that we are in, I think it's going to be a challenge always.
Yeah.
Jasper is going to be a challenge for you in terms of your losing the weight. It's going to be a challenge for you, Isaiah, for to have that positive image of yourself and be satisfied where you are. Is a constant struggle. Is a constant working.
It
Absolutely.
is. But we're gonna overcome it all, though. We're gonna keep doing what we need to do to face it head on. And we're not gonna let our struggles overtake us. No, we're
In
gonna
the
do
name
it.
of Black Jesus.
In the
Yeah,
name of Black Jesus. I
yes,
think the important to like takeaway is also that for men listening, it's okay to talk about your relationship with your body, your relationship with food, and it's okay to voice that out loud. You don't have to not talk about it because there's some type of machismo attached to not talking
There we
about
go.
it. Talk about it
And
because
that's what we're talking about it.
exactly. And talk
Because
about it with your
men,
guy friends.
yes, yeah,
yes,
but men should be comfortable. We're sharing our stories, not so that you can feel sorry for us and woogle woogle. It's because it should be very common for men to be able to speak about these things
Mhm.
and also get the help that you need. You don't have to suffer in silence.
yes, and not be judged.
Don't be
And not be
suffering.
judged.
Yeah.
Don't suffer in your toxic masculinity.
Mhm. And
Yes,
also don't care about don't care so much about seeking help for things that you need help to get through. I think that's a big thing. People feel like there's some type of shame attached to it because they're going to receive some type of judgment. And that's obviously one of the shitty things about our society. But it's important to know that there's resources, there's people to talk to. Talk to your doctor, talk to your guy friends, because the thing too is if you share something with them 9 times out of 10, they might share something with you that you had no idea about. You didn't even realize they were going through something like this. And maybe you're going through the same thing.
yes. So it's okay, guys out there. It's okay. We got guys. We have feelings, so it's okay to open up to your friends and share what you're going through. You don't have to keep it
And,
all bottled up. It's
Yeah.
okay to
and
be vulnerable
there
when
is
you
a
need to be.
national eating disorder association hotline
Mhm.
or helpline that anyone can call, men, women, 1-800-931-2237. They offer support Monday through Thursdays, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can expect to receive support, information, referral, guidance about treatment options for you or a loved one. So, there's help out there. You can speak to a friend, you can go to your doctor, you can speak to your nutritionist, you can speak to your therapist,
Mhm.
and all of the above is what helped me to be where I am today. Because I chose to not suffer in silence and face the reality of what it is that I was facing, what I was going through,
Mhm.
instead of denying it and living in this toxic masculinity realm. That if I didn't do what I did, I would be dead today.
Mhm.
If I was
And
still purging today, I will have no intestines left.
yeah, it's true. That is true. That is true. That is true.
And my doctor and my therapist had to tell me that and had to force me to see, because I'm, I can be very stubborn, let me tell you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
And I would have been
yeah.
stubborn to the grave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's
But
so true.
it wasn't easy work to cross that barrier, and it is, and but it's smoother now because of those tools that I got to navigate this, this issue or this
Mhm.
disorder that I have, because I have to call a thing, and I have a eating disorder. That's something that I'm constantly working on. Because
Mhm.
sometimes I have my family members, because I'm always telling, I have a nickname my family calls me, and they always tell me, hey, you're not eating today, or this is the first meal for the day. Like, wow, how can you do that? And sometimes I'm like, how can I do that? I don't know. Because it's not normal. It's not normal to eat one meal a day. And once again, and I also think it's a very privileged thing for me to be able to say that I don't want to eat, or that I have an issue with food, or that I purge, because there are people in this country and outside of this country that don't have meals only once a week, once a month.
I'm glad you say that. And I'm glad you brought that up because this it is really a conversation of as much as I want to emphasize and stress like how important this is. It is really important to also state that this is a conversation of privilege.
Yep.
You know what I
It
mean?
is.
It is.
That's true. People aren't kids are kids and people around the world are they're lucky to get, like you said, 1 meal a day. So
Mm-hmm.
it's we are privileged to be able to even share our experiences, knowing that we're comfortable, we can afford these things. So just
Absolutely.
keep that in mind. So yeah.
Absolutely. Theo, do you want to share that phone number one more time so that our listeners don't have to suffer in silence? Please do not
The
suffer in silence.
National Eating Disorder Association helpline is 1-800-931-2237. And there's another hotline called Hope Line Network. You can call them at 800-442-4673.
And it was brought to you by Theo Fox.
Oh my God, Jasper.
Jasper, I'm going to cut that shit out.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you
Thank you,
for,
everyone.
allowing us to be able to share our stories and being vulnerable, and you guys hearing and listening and being supportive.
Absolutely. And again, I say, do not suffer in silence.
Yes, don't suffer. Use your
Until next
voice.
time.
Absolutely.
Later.
Later.
Later.